what I'm saying is, for your relationship to get better, especially if divorce is not an option or you're dead set against it. And again, we're not promoting it, but we are very concerned about couples that have just settled. The other thing is that also contributes to the fact that couples are not wanting to work on their marriage and they're just settling is the fact that we've assigned, as society, we've based the success of a relationship on the length of the relationship. So if your marriage is carrying on for years and years, then that is what depicts a successful relationship. We are not looking at the other elements and the other aspects which depicts a successful relationship, which is basically things such as empathy, happiness, fulfillment, joy, love, peace, great communication, understanding, those sort of things. We looking purely at the length. So as long as I'm still married, my marriage is successful, and that's what I'm depicting to everybody else out there. All that tells you is your ability to endure. That's all it tells you. But there's so many other aspects that would make a marriage successful that we need to measure it up against. And I think that is a huge issue, the way we're looking at things, and it's a change in perspective. You have to change the way you're looking at it. And I find it interesting because marriage is always, in our faith, it's always described, if you look at scriptures and things like that, it's described as something tranquil and peaceful between a couple. Yet, many times, we kind of believe that it's supposed to be hard. That brings me to the next point, which is where, if you go to, for example, to a wedding ceremony, or there's speeches or there's advice given, people are like, okay, are you ready for this? Because marriage is something that is very, very hard. And the more we say it as a society, the more we take that on as a belief, and that belief gets planted in our subconscious mind. So what I'm saying is that a lot of couples find themselves in toxic marriages where there's no benefit to either one of them, and they are settling because they are hitting that target of marriage is hard, and they start to believe that this is the way it's supposed to be. Now, if you cannot say it's hard, then what can you say? Because I'm not saying it's easy. But what I am saying is that you can say that marriage is complex.
What do you mean by that?
And what I mean by that is that if you just looked at our marriage, for example, or took any other couple, right? You and I, we come from different backgrounds, we have a different upbringing, we have different opinions on many things, maybe different political views, we have a different way in how we interpret love, we have a different love language, we have different needs. That's just you and me. That's just looking at the two individuals directly in that relationship. That alone tells me there's a complexity to it, right? Now, if we bring in children, if we bring in our careers, if we bring in our individual goals, if we bring in our couple goals, if we bring in our in-laws, if we bring in our friends, our hobbies, if we bring in our day-to-day things we need to do, if you look at that, that adds even more complexity to it. But complexity doesn't need to translate to hard, to it being hard. You can still find something, you can still find great ease in something that is complex. For example, I use this analogy of a sailor. For me, I don't know much about sailing, but if I look at somebody sailing a ship, to me it looks very complex. But to the person doing it, I'm sure they find great ease in it, even though there's all these various aspects. And the more knowledgeable the sailor is about his ship, the easier you'll find to sail it, even though there's various aspects like the wind, the ocean, there's so much that's going on at the same time that he'll still find some sense of ease even in a rough sea or a rough ocean. I know, and I think for me, you can apply that same analogy and look at it in the same way in terms of marriage. There's so much different aspects that needs to be satisfied that if you're willing to dedicate time to yourself and willing to improve your ability to communicate, willing to improve your emotional intelligence, willing to improve your self-awareness, willing to improve how much you actually know about yourself and your partner. The empathy, the understanding, these are all skills in the same way that the sailor needs to learn various skills, which means that you are equipping yourself with skills that will allow you to sail the rough seas at times.